And welcome everyone. Yeah, I am super psyched to talk to our guest. It is a real thing. We have kind of lost our mojo, and it's time to get it back. And these are two of the highest energy people we know, so we're gonna have some fun with this conversation. As I like to do, I'm gonna ask our guests to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about how they got to where they are today. Stephanie, why don't you go first?
Thank you, Gina. So my name is Stephanie Rowzie. I am a co-founder and managing partner of Talent Remedy. Talent Remedy is a direct hire recruiting firm that my business partner and I founded back in 2012 with the thought process that we wanted an innovative way to offer a recruiting solution to business owners that they had not experienced before. One of my key roles in the organization is client acquisition. So I am out in the community, a business community on a daily basis, developing relationships, referral relationships, prospect relationships that ultimately will lead to clients. I also serve as the president of Nexco National, which is a lead share referral community that also offers professional development and introductions to prospects and centers of influence. And I've been in that role for about a year, but a member of the community for about 6 years.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you, Stephanie. Donald, welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I run a podcast called the Sales Evangelist Podcast, and been doing that since about 2013 officially. And subsequently, we created an organization early on at that time, a sales consulting firm and training called the Sales Evangelist, and primarily we work with individuals in the B2B space. A lot of them typically in a technical sales of some sort of software, and looking for ways to be able to improve. A lot of it is top of funnel education. How do I find more people to connect with on LinkedIn, or do my cold outreach, or improve my cold calling, my cold outreach strategies and tactics. And that's where we spend a lot of our time. And subsequently, we've been, over the years, we started creating content, and content is a huge top of funnel activity for us. And we created TSC Studios as well, and we've really been spending a lot of time with that, helping brands develop their own content identity and helping them with podcasts, and it's fun. So that's our separate other organization, TSC Studios. So that's what I do, spend time with it. I'm down in South Florida enjoying it with my family.
Oh, nice, nice. I figured you must be a real pro because you got that big microphone.
Oh boy.
And the headphones, you look like you know what you're doing. Well, so what we're going to talk about today, as Fred mentioned in his intro, is getting that fire back, the kind of pre-pandemic fired out. I mean, let's make no mistake, we were all kind of going at like 110 miles an hour, and a little bit of backstepping to catch our breath is probably not a bad thing, but something else shifted along the way, and people are just having trouble feeling it. So that's what we want to talk about today. And I'm going to ask you, I would like both of you to answer this first question. And so what are some of the things that you do to get motivated when you see your enthusiasm wane? Donald, since we were just talking with you, why don't we keep with that?
Yeah, I'll probably say the biggest thing that I go back on whenever I see my motivation wane is I look back at why am I doing what I'm doing. And this couldn't come at a better time because of stuff that we're doing within our organization, and also things that I've done in my personal life. And I feel that for me, though, I go back and evaluate. So, I mean, I hate to make it sound cliche, but the why. Like, why am I selling this? Who am I selling to? Do I enjoy this? And oftentimes, salespeople find themselves in positions where they may have a golden handcuff. They've been in a role for a while, and they make good money, and they don't necessarily have a huge drive or passion for that anymore. And without that, it makes it very difficult, but they can still limp along. And I think those leaders may see them in a situation like this and say, well, they're just going through a rough spell. I'm not going to necessarily, push anything against them. They do all right, and we're going to keep them. They're going to break through with it. But if you don't have a purpose, if you don't have a reason behind you, it's going to be really difficult for you to do it. And I'm not saying it's money. Money is not the reason alone. Like, it has to be something greater than money.
Mm.
Money. I think Zig said it. Money's not the most important thing in the world, but it's right up there with oxygen. And I wouldn't lie, it's right up there. Uh, love Zig, but and what is it you're going to do with that money? And like, for us, maybe that may be traveling, or maybe doing something really cool with our family. But we have a focus at the end of the year. We make a goal, or New Year, we make a goal of what our goals are for that next year. So that helps us with that. And then also professionally, there are certain things that I want to attain to. So it doesn't necessarily have to mean like, I want to go buy a new car. Like, that could be your thing, and that's fine. But you must have a why that's going to help you. And even company wise, we want to help a certain number of clients, and we want to help a certain number of clients in the South Florida area with our TSE studios. So that's given us a more of a drive for the next year of those people we want to impact and help. So you got to have, that's what I start to evaluate first when I feel that there's a wane or a decline in my performance.
Good answer. Stephanie?
Yeah, so I actually have two things that I think about when I start feeling a little unmotivated. The first one is it's my mindset. And I feel like that's where it all begins, is in your positivity and in getting into your head saying, I need to make sure that I'm doing the right activities and have the right mindset when I am approaching my prospects and my clients and my referral partners. So I truly believe that it starts with your mindset, and you've got to be in the game. And I have a great philosophy for myself. I'm either in it or I'm out of it. But if I'm in it, I'm thoroughly in it. So I think that's the first thing, especially when you're a salesperson, because you have to have that confidence and you have to have that drive, and it's got to project your energy, and how you share information has got to be very positive. And then I think the second thing is, I agree with Donald, you've got to have a why. But, being in the recruiting industry, everybody after the pandemic has wanted to have a purpose deeper than their job. But the reality is not every job has great purpose. So I think that what I share with people is, your job may get you to the place you want to be with your own purpose. So it may be through community service, it may be through a charity, it may be through your church, but your job can help propel you in a couple of ways, with your connections, with your energy, with your financial contributions. So I do say, know your why, but understand it may not always be in your job, but your job can help you get there.
Yes, good answer. And the reason I chuckled, audience, is because Donald did I could have said that.
It was more.
Oh, you're.
It was more of 100% right on. I was like, I was amening over here.
It was quite a gesture, though, so
Yeah.
it made me chuckle. Well, Donald, while you have your mic on, what advice do you have for sales leaders and managers these days to help them motivate people that they see unmotivated? Because, thinking about both your answers, it's like, what if you kind of feel the why, but you can't get your mindset there for whatever reason? If you're a manager and you're kind of witnessing this, what advice do you have for them?
So it's going to be an unpopular answer. And someone that not only has managed people, but also has helped clients, and also have been the individual contributor. Sometimes and I think this conversation needs to be had. Sometimes it's just not a good fit. Some people are just not a good fit, because how long, like, I would much rather the idea, and maybe you can help me out with this too. This is probably right within your world, Stephanie, but like, the idea that I find is, be willing to hire, slow, fire fast. Is that kind of like, does it kind of sign, fall in that category? Like, you want to make sure you're making the right decision with the person you're bringing on. But oftentimes what I find is that sometimes companies take forever, linger so long with letting somebody go who's not working, because of the hopes that they potentially will work. But if it hasn't worked for 6 months, what change is going to happen? And I'm not saying it, again, if the company has put stuff in place and they have enablement and they are working with this individual and they're trying to help that person, there's only so much that you can do. I as someone who does education and enablement and you're teaching salespeople, like honestly, I can't give you desire. There's no way that I can give you desire. I can give you the skills, I can give you the tactics, I can give you the strategy. I can even motivation is temporary. Like I can get you motivated and excited for a little bit, but if you don't have that desire to do that thing afterwards, it really becomes challenging. And I would say for leaders, first off, if the first thing you want to do is I want to make sure you make sure that person has one-on-one where you're working with
Mm.
them and helping them to identify, and maybe they can have some breakthrough. And it's probably not you individually as a leader. Perhaps you have an enablement department, or perhaps you have outside coaches that can best help that individual to help discover and guide and to find that true deep down meaning. But they should have that, they should be taken care of in that sense, and they should be helped, and that's the first thing that I would say. Two, once it can help them to identify, even if it's like goal oriented things, goals they're trying to accomplish. If you can help them to get to that point, then then fantastic. But after that, if the person isn't doing their own part, it doesn't matter how much more coaching you do. It doesn't matter how much more people you have in the process. Like that individual probably is not going to be a good fit. And I think about it like teams. Like I'm a big Miami Heat fan, and I love my South Florida sports team. Go Panthers! You saw that. But the but the thing though that we are discovering, the challenge that we're seeing though, in when it comes to our team, is that sometimes organization carry people on the team that shouldn't be on the team,
Mm.
and you need to be in a position where you need to say this person is not helping us win a championship, therefore we need to let them go. And it may not be the good fit at certain times. I remember at one point D Wade, where he was at the height of his career, was a starter, but then at certain point of his career, D Wade wasn't necessarily that big starter anymore. His career shifted and adjusted, and he didn't have the playing time that he needed, that he wanted, but he recognized that he needed to change, and he evolved for the best of the team. And when they had LeBron came, LeBron became that leader of the team, so to speak, and D Wade shift position. It was for the benefit of the team that we saw that success. And I think sometimes in companies we think about it as a family, but maybe I'm just this maybe evil guy, but I don't see my team as we're not a family. We're not. We are a team. Family, you can't fire your mom or your brother or your cousin. Like they're family forever. But as a team, if somebody's underperforming on a team, they should be able to make the decision to say, Coach, I'm not doing so well. Put Joe instead of me, and that's okay. And I think that part is the biggest. It's a hard pill to swallow. So if I were to go back and wrap this all up again, one, make sure the individual has the proper coaching and training, and then two, if you've done all you can, it just be evaluate, is this person a good fit for the team, because you're not a family.
Mm. Good answer.
Yeah.
Stephanie, I'm going to kind of turn it on its head a little bit and ask you, the employers that you're working with, do they talk to you about like underperforming people and finding, trying to spot the people that have the fire in their bellies already? I mean, and how successful are they at actually pinpointing that?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because it definitely is an epidemic, as you had mentioned, Gina, that especially in the sales field, that people are not performing at the level that they had in a lot of the companies prior
Mm.
to the pandemic. And I think there's a multitude of reasons, nervous energy that we had, uncertainty, change. People oftentimes have a hard time really processing that and then getting back onto the right roadmap in their career. But we don't talk so much about underperformers because we're more about finding the talent, so talent acquisition. But what I do tell our employers is with new employees, it's extremely important to have a good onboarding process. And some of that does include for salespeople, sales coaching and mentorship early on to ensure that they are going to be successful. As Donald shared, desire, you can't teach that, but you can do some behavioral interviewing to identify those characteristics. I think when you've had star performers and then, you've seen a decline in them after the pandemic, that's when you really need to be sitting down and having some honest conversations that are non-threatening about where they are, just like a professional athlete does with their coach. Where's your head? What's going on? And really figuring out if they still have that burning desire, as you said, to be successful for the organization. And if not, it may be a situation where you have a conversation about how can we help you exit the organization and be successful someplace else. But I do think that sales coaching and training is instrumental and extremely helpful to many folks, and it shows an investment on the part of the employer when they're able to offer that, whether it be in-house or be a hired person that's an expert in that field.
Yes, yes. That all makes a lot of sense. And we talked to Fred and I talked to a sales leader a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying just that, we have somebody, a couple somebodies that we're doing really well, and now they're not anymore. So, we bring them in, we coach them, we give them a little extra training, and then they're good for a couple months, and then they're back to not being so great. And I think, to Donald's point, sales organizations may have some hard choices to make, because I think the pandemic did give people the sense that, we're all family, we're all in this together, rather than the kind of team mentality that you were mentioning, Donald. So I think things are, will have to shake out, because to your point, Stephanie, people aren't making their numbers. And, there's only so much adjustment you can do before everything starts to suffer. So it'll be interesting to see where the next couple months go, excuse me. But that's really what this conversation's about. Like, how can we help people? So let's switch our focus a little bit and take it into your wheelhouse, Stephanie, of networking. Although, Donald, I'm sure you do a lot of networking too. How do you use, Stephanie, how do you use networking to stay motivated?
Yeah, so I will share that I think one of the biggest strengths that good salespeople have is they're good networkers, and they get energy off of other people through conversation, through connection. And I think with the pandemic, that a lot of salespeople got very isolated, because we went into a very virtual environment. They weren't going out and meeting their customers. They weren't meeting their internal team or their bosses. And so when people get isolated, they tend to withdraw. So you have to force yourself to get back out in the community. And I've actually taken a two-prong approach. I do a lot of virtual networking. It's more efficient in terms of being able to sit in front of a Zoom call, meet 12 other people, talk about your value proposition, learn how you can help them, how they can help you. You don't have to get in your car and drive everywhere. But I don't want to discount how important it is to get out face to face too. So I belong to Nexco, which does virtual networking. And then I go to other specialty industry events where I'm able to meet with business leaders and thought leaders in the industry and get in front of my peers that are doing, sales and also selling other services that I can build referral relationships with. So it's really two-pronged, but even with that, though, you have to get up and show up, right? So on Zoom, you've got to have energy. You've got to be excited about what you're doing, and you've got to be present. And I think a lot of times in virtual networking, people are typing emails, they're reading their phone. And, I share with people, be engaged, be present. You've got an opportunity to make these folks hunters for you, right? To go out in the community, be stewards of your business. So make sure they feel like they want to help you be successful. And then the same thing when you do in-person networking. When I can't tell you how many times I go to a networking event and people don't approach other people. You got to be willing to go up and shake a hand and introduce yourself, begin a conversation, and truly listen to what they have to say and make them feel important. And then when the time is right, you interject, what you do, and see if there's a partnership or some way you can help one another. And then, interesting enough, nobody carries business cards anymore. So I agree, it's great to be able to scan your QR code, but also have a pocket full of business cards, because when people put that on their desk, they remember you. They might not always remember you when they put you in a CRM and your name isn't popping up, periodically for them to reach out to.
That is a really good point, Stephanie, because I'm guilty of that too. I mean, going to events and then getting all these QR things and then totally forgetting to even look. And, sometimes LinkedIn isn't the most friendly. You go back and it's like, you can't even tell who came in where, because you've got people that are reaching out to you and people that you put in while you were there, and they're all mixed in. It's like, this is, unless you made notes right then, and then that's kind of rude too, because then you're back on your phone and doing things.
Right.
So yeah, you're absolutely right. So I'm gonna fish mine out.
Yeah.
Donald, what would you like to add to this conversation?
Yeah, I think there's the idea of the networking side is definitely helpful for motivation because of peer pressure. So we started in we have in our organization, our sales side of the house, we have a mastermind. And the sales mastermind, the way it's designed is that individual sellers will come in. It's not a training program. We're not teaching you how to sell. It's literally a mastermind. So individual may come in and say, for the next 3 months, I'm trying to hit $250,000 in revenue. Now, with most of these people being at home, being isolated by themselves, because now the sales, we're being more efficient, right? And we're being more effective financially. So we're not in person anymore. But when you're home and you're isolated, you're not hearing what Mary's saying on a call. You're not seeing this, that Dave closed something. In our office, we ring a bell. So, those things don't happen as much anymore. So then this you're seeing numbers only, and you have these weekly calls that you're getting on, but there's something about being around that energy, that pool. We're creatures of we are tribal in so many ways in our way that we behave. So I feel that the networking piece helps. So the reason why I bring up our program, what we notice is that when we had a lot of these people in the pandemic who were working isolated and being by themselves, they weren't necessarily performing. But once they started being a part of our group, they started performing better. They had a goal that they set. We helped break down that goal into micro goals. So then now every week they're focused on that. And then they came back to the group session every week and they're reporting on how they did on that micro goal that's helping them accomplish their big goal of $250,000 that they're trying to close. So maybe they say, yeah, this week I did X amount of LinkedIn outreach. I had so many conversations. I went to this event, met with these people, and then so forth. I did this with I changed the way I did my emails, and they get feedback. But that networking with other people allow them to now have other measuring sticks to look at or others they can learn from. And it's the same idea when kids go to school as well. Like we have our son who goes to a Montessori school, and the way they have to set up the education is that you're learning with people from different age limits. So he may be able to learn like with the 3-year-olds, but he's also learning from the 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds, and he's learning a lot more from them because of this communal idea. And that's what's happening. Rather than just being with your own company, you learn from other people. So I really feel networking does help with that. I really feel that you're seeing numbers from other people in other industries get you to perform at a different level as well, rather than, again, just being isolated. So that's one factor I always encourage people. And if you don't have that within, you don't need to go to a formal program. Anyone can do this by finding some of their colleagues on LinkedIn, friends that they know, and just have an accountability with each other. And that's another huge way that I found to be an increase in performance is when somebody has when they can have an accountability. And I think sometimes in some way since that pandemic, hopefully I don't get any hate mail, but it seems like you're saying, I think sometimes we get a little bit softer where we are not pushing as much in some of those areas. Like you still need to have a high level of accountability in sales. Like we're the front line, we get paid the most, and we need to have accountability. Not saying you need to be jerks and to be mean and yell at people, but there's accountability. How are you going to get X number? And what will happen if you don't do that? And how, what kind of challenges are you facing that we can help you to accomplish it? But when I look at with accountability, oftentimes is that sometimes we don't take advantage or utilize that enough within our teams. But when I have accountability in place, it improved it. I think it was Pearson Law who said it: when performance is measured, performance increase. When performance is measured and reported back, the rate of performance increased significantly. So there's this power of reporting back, of this accountability, of this measuring, and it allows for us to be able to really to really improve because now we have something that we're personally measuring. And accountability doesn't necessarily mean it's a top down. Accountability is from my side up, because if I'm an athlete or a salesperson or a performer, I want to be better in it, and that's where the desire comes in. But if I know I want to be better, then I put those accountability in place for myself. I remember once I went to my manager and I tell my manager like, "Hey, this is what I'm trying to accomplish," and then now I had that accountability. I told her about it, but then every week she would ask me, "How are you doing on that?" She didn't set the measurement. I set the measurement, and it's something that I work towards. And I feel like that makes it that doggedness that gives you that drive. And I think also to go back to this bigger issue, and again, all theories here, but from my evaluation and working with teams and so forth, what it comes down to is life has become a lot easier in so many ways with the pandemic. So because of the easiness of ways that we can go about doing things, that has translated into lackluster performance. And go back to what you're saying there, Stephanie, like with like, in-person visits, we don't necessarily have to do those anymore. So now we're just chilling at home. If I just jump on it if I have to I make a cup of coffee and then I jump on to my Zoom meetings and I start making phone calls or doing things and then I'm done and I don't talk to any humans and I'm playing, video games or listening to stuff in between and doing some laundry and then maybe do some more calls and so forth. And hey, that's the end of my day. I get an appointment booked or whatnot. Like it's just there's no drive to do stuff like, and there's physically like, I think there's that drive of now I have to get up at 6 o'clock. I have to do my gym. Then I have to get ready and take the kids to school and go to do my, get to work in the office by 8:30. Like I think that routine made it allowed for us to be able to have that drive. And then naturally in a workplace, you had the opportunity to have accountability with people around you and to mingle. But I think some of that, and I'm not saying that's what we need to go back to, but I'm saying because of some of that, and we went to this world where we don't have much resistance, no wonder why we have people that don't have a big of a drive or passion, because why get up
Yeah.
any earlier? I don't
Yeah,
know if I'm
no,
making sense.
absolutely, absolutely. And to your point, you would get so wound up doing all those things by 8:30 and dealing with traffic. You get in there and it's like, all right, let me at them. So
Yeah, yeah, I
there is
want to
something
say,
to
Gina,
that.
I love Donald's thoughts. I mean, I think he's right on about that. I think what a lot of people don't realize, especially salespeople, is this is a great time for them to be wildly successful. And the reason is because so many people don't have that drive right now. They're still trying to figure out, how do I get my mojo back? How do I get my direction back? And so the opportunists are going to show up, and they're going to show up really strong, and they're going to end up being wildly successful while these other folks are still trying to figure it out. So if they can get their mind to that place and realize, the opportunity in front of them, then those are the ones that are going to rise and really shine right now.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
I love it. And one other piece to add on to this too, Stephanie, we need to hang out more. This is fun. In our world, what we're seeing also is the over reliance on tech, which make it even more of a less, I guess, less importance for me to do stuff. So again, and I'm again, please, I hope this doesn't sound wrong, but I love my technology. I love Chat GPT. I love utilizing, all the different sales hacks and tools that I have. And I realized that there can be this over reliance, and when there's overabundance of technology, it becomes that your tech stack become bloated, or the things to perform your work becomes bloated. Then it's I'm not necessarily having that drive to really do stuff.
Well,
I'm being led by the tools rather than me directing and leading the tools. I'm
well,
going into
maybe
my
that's a
CRM.
I hate
So
to interrupt you, Donald, but we're
yeah.
running out of time. But that might be a good tip for them in terms of one final action tip, and perhaps yours is move away from technology so much and get back to the fundamentals.
Yeah, the over reliance on technology.
Yeah, great, great, thank you. And Stephanie?
So in terms of my piece of advice for folks, is that what you're asking?
Yes.
So I would say put yourself back out there. I mean, I was recently at the IES awards ceremony, with 200 plus people, dynamic salespeople and sales leaders. I walked out of there feeling like I was on fire. I was like, I want to be one of these people. I want to be one of these people who get up and show up and have the energy and make conversations and represent my company well. So I would say put yourself back out there, networking virtually and in person, and really put together a plan for yourself, as Donald said, small micro goals, and hold yourself accountable to that. That would be my plan.
Perfect. Perfect. Yes. And that's good advice. Come to IES events. I love it. Well, thank you very much, Stephanie and Donald. You've been fabulous guests and given us a lot to think about as we try to, pull ourselves out of the molasses of.
That's a good analogy. It's like molasses sometimes. Yes.
Yeah, it feels like it, doesn't it? All right. Well, thank you very much. And let's do this in a year and see how far we've come.
Thank you.
You're welcome.